You're listening to an exclusive production from Valio, Hidden Agendas, The Secret Burden of Leadership. Chapter 1. The Invisible Forces of Power. Awareness before strategy. Leadership is rarely what it appears to be on the surface. The public face, the polished statements, the confident decisions, these are only the visible layers. Beneath them lie currents of influence, subtle pressures, and forces that pull and shape outcomes without ever announcing themselves. To navigate leadership effectively, you must learn to see what is unseen, to feel what is often left unsaid, and to recognize the patterns that quietly determine results long before they become visible. The first step in this awareness is accepting that nothing in leadership exists in isolation. Every choice you make, every directive you issue, interacts with an intricate web of interests, fears, ambitions, and loyalties. Some of these are declared openly, but many are concealed, residing in the private conversations, whispered exchanges, and personal calculations of those around you. The challenge is not merely identifying these hidden forces, but understanding how they move, how they shape decisions, and how they affect the outcomes you are responsible for. Begin by observing without judgment. Notice who seeks proximity to power, who avoids confrontation, who speaks in measured tones, and who reacts in subtle ways to decisions and directives. These small signals, body language, tone of voice, timing of actions, reveal undercurrents that are often more influential than formal hierarchies or official roles. Leadership is less about commanding, and more about understanding the network of influence that operates quietly behind the scenes. One of the most powerful tools in developing this awareness is listening. Real listening goes beyond hearing words. It involves detecting hesitations, inconsistencies, and omissions. A pause, a choice of words, or even a seemingly casual remark can expose priorities, fears, or motives that are otherwise hidden. When you cultivate this sensitivity, you begin to perceive the invisible architecture of influence, the way people align, resist, or maneuver based on what they hope to gain or avoid. Equally important is understanding that these unseen forces are not inherently malicious. Not all hidden agendas are designed to undermine you. Often, people operate from self-interest, habit, or fear, without realizing the effect their actions have on the broader system. Recognizing this allows you to approach situations without defaulting to suspicion or confrontation, responding instead with discernment, clarity, and strategy. You learn to separate threats from neutral dynamics, and to act with precision rather than reaction. Awareness also requires recognizing your own vulnerabilities. Leaders are not immune to influence. You too are part of the network. Your decisions, your words, and even your silences send ripples that others interpret and react to. By understanding how others might perceive your actions, you gain a vantage point from which to anticipate outcomes. Awareness of your own biases, blind spots, and emotional triggers strengthens your ability to navigate the invisible currents without being swept along by them. Timing is another element often dictated by hidden forces. Decisions made too early or too late, communications delivered in the wrong sequence, or actions taken without regard to the subtle emotional climate can amplify resistance, create tension, or invite misinterpretation. Leadership requires attunement to rhythm and flow, the capacity to sense when the moment is ripe for intervention, and when patience will serve better. Hidden forces often operate like a tide, ebbing and flowing, and understanding this rhythm gives you the power to act decisively without unnecessary friction. Developing awareness also involves mapping relationships and networks. Influence rarely flows in straight lines. It travels through informal alliances, shared histories, and interpersonal bonds. Identify who holds sway, who informs whom, and who acts as a bridge between groups or individuals. This network intelligence allows you to understand not just what is happening, but why it is happening and who is driving it. Leadership is never about commanding from the top alone. It is about navigating the interconnected lattice of motivations and loyalties that shapes every environment. An essential part of this process is recognizing patterns. People tend to behave consistently, even when circumstances change. By observing reactions to stress, conflict, or opportunity, you can anticipate future moves. Pattern recognition turns uncertainty into actionable insight. It allows you to position yourself in ways that maximize influence while minimizing exposure to unseen risks. This is not manipulation, it is understanding. True leadership thrives on insight, not control alone. Awareness also demands a certain emotional resilience. The more you see, the more you understand the complexity and, at times, the fragility of human motives. It is natural to feel unsettled by hidden dynamics, to sense undercurrents of rivalry, envy, or fear. The key is not to suppress these feelings but to harness them. Use them as signals rather than obstacles, as tools to sharpen perception rather than sources of paralysis. Emotional mastery allows you to maintain clarity in the presence of uncertainty, to act decisively without being driven by fear or impulse. Reflection is another critical practice. Take time to step back from the immediacy of daily decisions and examine patterns, outcomes, and interactions. Ask yourself what influences are at play, what is being revealed indirectly, and what remains concealed. Journaling, structured reflection, or even silent contemplation can help you solidify understanding and detect nuances that are easily overlooked in the rush of action. Awareness is not static. It grows through continuous attention, patience, and thoughtful observation. It is also vital to cultivate a sense of humility alongside awareness. The more you perceive the hidden forces around you, the more you realize the limits of your own perspective. You will not catch every nuance or predict every action, but by remaining observant, adaptable, and open to learning, you maintain the advantage of insight. Humility does not weaken authority. It strengthens judgment by preventing overconfidence and fostering continuous vigilance. Practical application of this awareness begins with small, deliberate actions. Approach meetings, negotiations, and strategic decisions with an eye toward what is present and what is unspoken. Test assumptions gently, ask clarifying questions, and observe the responses beyond words. Notice shifts in tone, pauses, or subtle gestures. They are often the indicators of hidden priorities. Each observation adds to a mental map that informs your choices, allowing you to anticipate outcomes rather than merely reacting to them. Awareness of hidden forces also guides communication. Once you understand the currents at play, you can tailor your words, timing, and approach to align with the dynamics rather than against them. This does not mean manipulation or deceit. It means strategic clarity, the ability to convey intentions in ways that resonate and minimize resistance. The most effective leaders are those who navigate invisible landscapes with precision, turning complexity into clarity without compromising integrity. Another layer of awareness involves recognizing the emotional climate. Human decisions are rarely purely rational. Anxiety, pride, loyalty, resentment, and ambition color every interaction. By attuning to these emotional undercurrents, you can anticipate reactions, prevent unnecessary conflict, and foster engagement. Awareness is as much about sensing emotional patterns as it is about decoding structural influence. Ultimately, the invisible forces of power are constant companions in leadership. They cannot be ignored or wished away. The difference between reactive leadership and strategic mastery lies in your ability to see them, understand them, and act with intention. Awareness before strategy is the foundation upon which influence, effectiveness, and resilience are built. It is the lens through which you perceive opportunity, risk, and the true dynamics of every environment you inhabit. Closing this chapter, take a moment to internalize this understanding. The most potent leaders are those who navigate the unseen with calm, clarity, and insight. Awareness is not a passive act. It is a deliberate, ongoing practice. By learning to perceive the hidden currents, you gain the power to move with them, to influence without force, and to lead without being consumed by shadows. Every decision, every conversation, every observation becomes a step toward mastery, not through control alone, but through understanding, presence, and strategic insight. This awareness, once cultivated, is the quiet strength that underlies every effective choice, every resilient action, and every enduring influence. It is the foundation upon which the burden of leadership transforms into the privilege of guiding with clarity, purpose, and unwavering discernment. Chapter 2. The Weight of Secrets. Understanding the burden of knowledge. Knowledge carries power, but it also carries a weight that is often invisible. The more you understand about the people, systems, and dynamics around you, the more responsibility you shoulder. Secrets are not merely information kept from you. They are the unspoken truths, the hidden motives, and the private calculations that influence every interaction, every decision, every outcome. As a leader, you inevitably encounter these shadows, and how you manage them defines both your effectiveness and your resilience. The first truth to grasp is that secrets exist everywhere, and they are rarely malevolent by design. People conceal thoughts, intentions, or information for many reasons: fear, self-preservation, ambition, or even a desire to protect others. A team member may withhold a concern to avoid appearing incompetent. An ally may downplay their ambitions to maintain harmony. A competitor may disguise intentions to gain an advantage. The patterns are subtle, and the consequences are often profound. Understanding this requires more than observation. It requires interpretation, empathy, and discernment. Carrying knowledge about these hidden layers is not the same as carrying authority. Authority can be exercised openly, enforced through structure, rules, or formal power. Knowledge, however, is intangible, invisible, and often dangerous if misapplied. Holding insight into motives or dynamics that others are unaware of grants leverage, but it also brings the burden of responsibility. Each secret, each insight, has the potential to influence outcomes, and with that comes the weight of ethical judgment. How, when, and if you act upon what you know becomes a test of both strategy and character. One of the challenges in managing this weight is maintaining perspective. When you know more than others, it is tempting to act prematurely, to push for decisions or actions based on information they do not yet possess. But wisdom requires patience. Timing is crucial. Revealing or acting on knowledge without careful consideration can create tension, sow distrust, or provoke resistance. Leadership is about discernment, the ability to judge when the right moment has arrived to leverage insight for the greater good without causing unnecessary disruption. The burden of knowledge also affects relationships. Awareness of hidden motives changes how you interact, listen, and respond. You must navigate conversations with subtlety, never revealing more than is necessary, while still maintaining trust and credibility. This requires emotional intelligence, self-control, and a deep understanding of human behavior. The more you know, the more careful you must be to ensure that your actions do not alienate, intimidate, or manipulate those around you. Secrets, when held responsibly, can protect relationships. Mismanaged, they can erode them. There is also a psychological dimension to this burden. Carrying hidden knowledge can be isolating. You may feel separated from others because they cannot see the layers you perceive. The more you understand about what drives people behind the scenes, the more conscious you become of vulnerability, misalignment, or risk. This heightened awareness can lead to anxiety, self-doubt, or even cynicism if not balanced with perspective and self-care. Recognizing the emotional impact of secrets is essential. Leaders who neglect this aspect may become reactive, mistrustful, or rigid, undermining the very influence they seek to cultivate. Maintaining clarity amidst concealed information requires systems of organization and reflection. Keep mental notes, document observations, and create frameworks to understand patterns. This helps transform scattered insights into actionable understanding. Patterns reveal themselves over time. The repeated hesitations, consistent behaviors, and subtle cues that signal priorities, ambitions, or concerns. Awareness without structure can become overwhelming. Structured awareness transforms burden into strategic advantage. Another aspect of the weight of secrets is the ethical responsibility it imposes. Knowledge gives you options that others do not have, but it also requires restraint. Acting on hidden information without careful thought can compromise trust, damage relationships, and create unintended consequences. True leadership balances the utility of knowledge with ethical judgment. Discretion becomes a skill as vital as decisiveness. You must ask yourself, will acting on this information serve the greater purpose, or merely satisfy curiosity, ego, or a short-term objective? Awareness without ethical grounding can become destructive. The burden of knowledge also intersects with self-awareness. Recognize how your own biases, fears, and ambitions influence the way you interpret hidden dynamics. A suspicion may feel justified, but is it grounded in evidence, or is it a projection of your own concerns? Your judgments about motives and intentions are colored by your experiences and perspectives. Cultivating self-awareness ensures that the weight of what you know does not become distorted into paranoia or miscalculation. Balance insight with introspection, and you prevent secrets from becoming a trap rather than a tool. Communication is another domain shaped by concealed information. How you share knowledge, when you choose to disclose, and what you decide to withhold are all critical. Transparency has value, but indiscriminate openness can create vulnerability. Conversely, excessive secrecy can breed suspicion and mistrust. Navigating this delicate balance is a central leadership skill. It requires constant adjustment, sensitivity to context, and a nuanced understanding of the people and dynamics involved. Carrying the weight of secrets also demands resilience. The knowledge of hidden forces, unspoken ambitions, or undisclosed tensions can be heavy, but it can also be empowering when managed with discipline. Leaders who develop resilience do not allow the weight to erode their confidence or cloud their judgment. They acknowledge the complexity, respect the responsibility, and act with measured intention. Emotional resilience transforms burden into strength, enabling decisive action without being swayed by fear, resentment, or distraction. Another layer is strategic foresight. Secrets often reveal not just what is, but what might be. They offer the opportunity to anticipate challenges, navigate potential conflicts, and shape outcomes proactively. The ability to predict consequences based on hidden dynamics is one of the most valuable aspects of leadership. It allows you to prepare, to influence without force, and to guide processes in ways that appear seamless to others. The weight of knowledge is heavy precisely because it carries the potential to alter trajectories, your own and those of others. Yet, it is essential to remember that the weight of knowledge is shared responsibility. Even when information is concealed from you, you remain accountable for outcomes. Effective leadership does not rely solely on knowing everything. It relies on making sound judgments with the knowledge you have, combined with the discernment to act wisely amidst uncertainty. Secrets are part of the landscape, not a substitute for judgment. The challenge is not simply to uncover them, but to navigate their presence with clarity, ethics, and strategy. Reflection, once again, is key. Take time to process what you learn, consider the implications, and plan your actions accordingly. Quiet contemplation, journaling, or structured review allows insight to solidify and prevents the emotional weight from overwhelming you. The goal is to convert knowledge into strategic advantage without allowing it to become a source of stress, fear, or moral compromise. Finally, understand that secrets are not static. Motives shift, alliances change, and priorities evolve. What is hidden today may become visible tomorrow, and vice versa. Effective leaders remain adaptable, continuously scanning the landscape, adjusting strategies and recalibrating decisions. The burden of knowledge is dynamic, requiring constant attention, flexibility, and vigilance. Closing this chapter, internalize this principle. The weight of secrets is both a challenge and a privilege. It demands discernment, patience, ethical grounding, and emotional resilience. It separates reactive leaders from those who guide with foresight, clarity, and strategic insight. When managed wisely, the burden becomes a tool that empowers you to influence, protect, and inspire without being consumed by the shadows you carry. Every hidden truth you understand, every subtle motive you discern, adds depth to your judgment, strength to your presence, and confidence to your leadership. The weight of secrets is not a curse. It is an opportunity to rise above the obvious, to act with insight, and to lead with a steady hand while the unseen currents of influence move all around you. Chapter 3. The Cost of Hidden Agendas. When concealment undermines influence. Hidden agendas are the silent disruptors of leadership. They rarely announce themselves, yet their impact can be profound, subtle, and corrosive. A hidden agenda is not simply secrecy. It is intention concealed beneath the surface, a motive that operates without acknowledgement but shapes decisions, alliances, and outcomes. Leaders who fail to recognize these forces often find their influence eroded, their initiative stalled, and their authority quietly undermined. Understanding the cost of hidden agendas is essential to protecting clarity, maintaining trust, and navigating complexity with precision. The first truth to acknowledge is that agendas exist in every environment. People pursue goals for reasons that may align with the collective mission, or they may diverge entirely. A team member may promote a project not for its merit, but for personal advancement. An ally may agree outwardly while maneuvering for an advantage elsewhere. The presence of these agendas is not inherently malicious, but the concealment of intention creates friction, misalignment, and uncertainty. Leadership is less about controlling these dynamics and more about recognizing, assessing, and responding to them thoughtfully. One of the most immediate costs of hidden agendas is the erosion of trust. Trust is the foundation of influence. When motives are unclear or concealed, skepticism and doubt quietly seep into interactions. Team members may hesitate to share ideas, delay execution, or act defensively. Even when outcomes appear successful, the undercurrent of unspoken ambition can undermine cohesion, creating subtle barriers to collaboration and effectiveness. Leaders must remain vigilant, recognizing that the absence of transparency does not equate to alignment. Hidden agendas also consume attention and energy. When a leader senses unspoken motives, they are forced to dedicate mental and emotional resources to monitoring, interpreting, and anticipating actions that might otherwise remain focused on strategic goals. This diversion reduces capacity, increases stress, and can cloud judgment. The subtle energy spent decoding intentions is a cost that, over time, can diminish clarity and slow progress. Leadership requires awareness, but awareness without strategy becomes exhausting. Another consequence is the distortion of decision-making. When people act based on concealed objectives, the information reaching you is filtered, incomplete, or biased. Recommendations may emphasize personal gain over collective benefit. Feedback may be framed selectively, highlighting favorable outcomes while downplaying risks or consequences. Leaders who fail to detect these distortions risk making choices that are influenced more by hidden agendas than by reality. The subtle manipulation of information is one of the quietest yet most impactful ways that secrecy undermines authority. The cost is not only operational, it is emotional as well. Hidden agendas generate tension, suspicion, and doubt. Leaders may feel isolated, unsure of whom to trust, or burdened by the responsibility of reconciling conflicting motives. The emotional landscape becomes complicated, requiring a careful balance of empathy, discernment, and restraint. Leaders who allow frustration or distrust to dominate risk reactive responses, which only amplify the influence of concealed agendas. Emotional awareness and regulation are therefore indispensable in maintaining control amidst hidden forces. Patterns reveal themselves over time, and recognizing them is a powerful tool. Hidden agendas often manifest consistently through behavior, choice of words, timing of actions, or subtle signals of alignment or resistance. A leader who observes diligently will notice repeated deviations, unspoken priorities, or concealed alliances. Identifying patterns allows proactive intervention, ensuring that decisions are informed, aligned, and resilient to disruption. The cost of hidden agendas is mitigated not by force but by insight. Communication is another domain where hidden agendas exact a price. Misalignment of expectations, strategic ambiguity, or selective disclosure can create confusion and erode credibility. When a leader fails to account for concealed motives, messages may be misunderstood, commitments misinterpreted, and initiatives delayed. Influence depends on clarity and consistency, both of which are jeopardized by undisclosed intentions. Leaders must craft communication strategies that reinforce transparency, verify understanding, and anticipate potential distortions. Resistance, often subtle and quiet, is a hallmark of hidden agendas. A project may stall without explanation, cooperation may be lukewarm, or decisions may face unexpected hurdles. These obstacles are rarely overt. They manifest in delays, indirect opposition, or selective compliance. Leaders who fail to recognize these signals risk misattributing causation, blaming inefficiency or circumstance rather than the influence of concealed objectives. The cost of hidden agendas is amplified when misdiagnosed, as leaders may expend energy on the wrong solutions. Ethics intersect with the management of hidden agendas. A leader aware of concealed motives faces difficult choices: when to confront, when to adjust, when to guide indirectly. Every action carries consequences, and missteps can escalate tension or create new fractures. Ethical leadership demands that insight into hidden agendas be wielded with responsibility, leveraging knowledge to align objectives, support integrity, and protect the collective mission rather than exploiting information for personal gain. Mismanagement of this responsibility compounds the cost, eroding both credibility and influence. Another cost emerges in the form of opportunity. Hidden agendas can obscure priorities, misdirect resources, or delay critical action. Projects may miss optimal windows, relationships may be strained, and initiatives may fail to reach their potential. The longer concealed motives remain unrecognized, the greater the likelihood that the organization and its leaders will operate below capacity. Awareness transforms this risk into advantage, enabling leaders to act decisively, allocate resources strategically, and mitigate misalignment before it creates irreparable consequences. The impact of hidden agendas is cumulative. Each unaddressed motive, each unrecognized objective, each unspoken alignment gradually erodes influence. Over time, the leader's capacity to steer outcomes, build trust, and maintain cohesion diminishes. What begins as minor friction can escalate into systemic dysfunction if not addressed. Effective leadership requires continuous observation, assessment, and intervention, ensuring that the invisible currents of personal ambition, fear, or self-interest do not undermine collective objectives. Resilience is essential. Navigating hidden agendas is not about eliminating uncertainty, but managing it. Leaders must cultivate patience, discernment, and strategic flexibility. The ability to observe without overreacting, to anticipate without paranoia, and to guide without coercion is what allows influence to persist despite concealed motives. Emotional stability and clear thinking are as critical as strategic insight, forming the foundation upon which effective leadership can operate even in the presence of unspoken agendas. Strategic intervention is often subtle. It may involve clarifying objectives, reshaping incentives, or fostering open communication without directly exposing hidden intentions. Leaders who act indirectly yet effectively can align divergent motives with the collective goal, turning potential disruption into collaboration. The cost of hidden agendas is reduced not through confrontation alone, but through thoughtful action that addresses the root causes without escalating tension. Reflection and continual learning reinforce resilience. Leaders who take time to analyze outcomes, understand misalignments, and identify the underlying motives of actions refine their judgment. They become less reactive and more strategic, able to anticipate the ripple effects of concealed agendas before they manifest. The cost of hidden agendas is mitigated by insight, pattern recognition, and disciplined observation over time. Closing this chapter, recognize this. The presence of hidden agendas is inevitable, but their impact is not uncontrollable. The cost is measured not only in operational disruption, but in trust, emotional energy, and the clarity of your influence. By observing carefully, responding ethically, and maintaining emotional and strategic resilience, you preserve authority and effectiveness. Leadership is a constant negotiation between seen and unseen forces. Those who master this balance transform hidden agendas from threats into opportunities for insight, alignment, and enduring influence. Every concealed motive you discern, every subtle dynamic you navigate, strengthens your ability to act decisively and lead with both authority and integrity. The cost of hidden agendas is real, but it is never insurmountable for the leader who observes, understands, and responds with awareness and purpose. Chapter 4. Emotional Mastery in Uncertainty. Staying grounded when motives are hidden. Uncertainty is an inevitable companion of leadership. The more complex the environment, the more unpredictable human behavior becomes. When intentions are concealed and motives are hidden, the sense of stability can slip through your fingers, leaving doubt, frustration, or even fear in its place. Emotional mastery is the tool that transforms this uncertainty into clarity, composure, and decisive action. It is not about suppressing feelings or pretending that everything is under control. It is about recognizing emotions as signals, understanding their origin, and using them to guide rather than derail your leadership. The first step in cultivating emotional mastery is self-awareness. You must know your triggers, your anxieties, and the ways uncertainty affects your judgment. When someone conceals information, when alliances shift, or when motives are unclear, it is natural to experience unease. Recognize these responses without judgment. Awareness of your emotional state creates space between impulse and action, allowing decisions to be guided by strategy rather than reaction. The more attuned you are to yourself, the less likely the hidden currents around you will dictate your behavior. Next is the art of observation. In environments filled with concealed intentions, emotions are often the most reliable indicators of hidden dynamics. Tension, hesitation, overenthusiasm, or subtle defensiveness all reveal clues. Emotional mastery involves reading these cues accurately, interpreting them without projection, and using them to anticipate outcomes. Observing others' emotional patterns sharpens insight, helping you navigate interactions, predict behavior, and make informed decisions even when motives are undisclosed. Equally important is regulation. Awareness alone is not enough if your emotions dictate your responses. Leaders often feel compelled to react immediately to perceived threats, misalignment, or manipulations. Emotional regulation allows you to pause, assess, and choose responses deliberately. Techniques such as measured breathing, reflective pauses, or mental rehearsal may seem simple, but they create the space necessary to prevent reactive decisions. This is particularly vital when hidden agendas are at play, as impulsive reactions can exacerbate conflicts or reveal vulnerabilities that others may exploit. Empathy plays a subtle but powerful role in mastering emotions amidst uncertainty. Understanding the emotional drivers of others, the fears, aspirations, and pressures influencing behavior, enables you to interpret hidden actions with clarity rather than suspicion. Empathy does not require approval of every choice. It requires perspective. Recognizing why someone conceals information or acts strategically allows you to respond with insight rather than frustration. Emotional mastery blends observation, regulation, and empathy into a cohesive approach that strengthens leadership even in ambiguous environments. Resilience is another cornerstone. Concealed motives can trigger doubt, frustration, or even a sense of isolation. Leaders who are emotionally resilient maintain stability under pressure. They accept that not everything is visible, that challenges will arise, and that unexpected maneuvers are part of the landscape. Resilience transforms emotional reactions from obstacles into tools for adaptation. By cultivating it, you remain grounded, confident, and capable of acting decisively despite uncertainty. Clarity of purpose anchors emotional mastery. When motives are hidden, it is easy to become distracted by speculation or consumed by attempts to uncover every detail. A strong sense of mission and values provides a stabilizing force. When you know what matters most, what outcomes are essential, what principles are non-negotiable, you can filter actions and responses through this lens. Clarity reduces susceptibility to manipulation and prevents your emotional state from being dictated by shifting dynamics around you. Another key principle is detachment without disengagement. Emotional mastery does not mean apathy. It means observing and engaging strategically rather than reacting impulsively. Detachment allows you to evaluate situations objectively, while engagement ensures that you influence outcomes effectively. Leaders who master this balance can respond with precision, acting in alignment with both goals and values, even when intentions are hidden and pressures are high. Anticipation enhances mastery. By understanding common patterns of human behavior, recurring conflicts, and the ways hidden agendas manifest, you can anticipate challenges before they fully materialize. This foresight reduces the emotional shock of surprises, allowing measured responses rather than reactive ones. Emotional mastery in uncertainty thrives on preparedness, foresight, and the recognition that unpredictability is a constant, not an anomaly. Reflection and journaling are practical methods to consolidate mastery. Taking time to review interactions, assess emotional responses, and identify patterns reinforces understanding. Reflection transforms experience into insight, turning past challenges into guides for future decisions. Leaders who reflect regularly develop an internal compass, allowing emotional stability to persist even when external circumstances are ambiguous or opaque. Another layer of mastery is communication under uncertainty. Hidden motives can distort understanding, but a leader who communicates with calm, clarity, and intention sets the tone for the environment. Thoughtful phrasing, measured pacing, and deliberate timing reduce misunderstandings and reinforce authority. Emotional mastery ensures that communication is guided by strategy, not by the highs and lows of perception or fear. Adaptability complements emotional control. Uncertainty often demands flexibility. Hidden motives, unexpected reactions, or shifting alliances require a leader to adjust strategy without compromising purpose. Emotional mastery allows adaptation without destabilization, enabling nimble responses that maintain credibility, build trust, and reinforce influence. Rigidity in the face of ambiguity can magnify challenges, whereas flexibility anchored in self-awareness and emotional regulation transforms uncertainty into opportunity. Patience is an often overlooked aspect. Unseen forces rarely reveal themselves immediately. Decisions made too quickly in response to incomplete information can create unintended consequences. Emotional mastery encourages patience, the ability to observe, to gather insight, and to act when timing is optimal. Patience, when combined with vigilance, creates the conditions for decisive, informed leadership that respects both complexity and human dynamics. Finally, integrating emotional intelligence into strategic action completes the framework of mastery. Awareness of self, understanding of others, regulation of responses, and thoughtful engagement converge to create influence that is resilient, ethical, and effective. Hidden motives will continue to exist, challenges will arise, and ambiguity will persist. But leaders who cultivate emotional mastery remain anchored, able to navigate the unseen currents of intention, and capable of acting decisively while preserving clarity and integrity. Closing this chapter, remember, uncertainty is not a threat but a landscape to be navigated with insight, discipline, and calm. Emotional mastery transforms doubt into discernment, fear into vigilance, and complexity into clarity. Every pause, every measured response, and every thoughtful observation reinforces your presence, authority, and effectiveness. The ability to remain grounded amid hidden motives is not merely a skill. It is the foundation upon which influence, resilience, and leadership endure. Through mastery of your emotions, you gain the freedom to act strategically, respond with confidence, and guide outcomes without being swayed by the hidden currents that swirl around you. Emotional steadiness is your shield, your compass, and your most reliable tool in the uncertain terrain of leadership. Chapter 5. Recognizing manipulation, detecting hidden agendas before they take hold. Influence is a natural part of human interaction, but manipulation is influence disguised as something harmless. It operates in the shadows, subtle and deliberate, shaping perceptions, decisions, and behaviors without direct acknowledgement. As a leader, your ability to detect manipulation before it takes root is critical. The consequences of failing to recognize it are far-reaching: compromised decisions, fractured trust, and eroded authority. Developing the skill to identify manipulation is not about suspicion for its own sake. It is about protecting clarity, maintaining integrity, and navigating complex environments with discernment. The first step is awareness of subtle signals. Manipulation rarely arrives as overt pressure. Instead, it often manifests through minor distortions: selective disclosure of information, exaggerated reactions, strategic flattery, guilt, or appeals to emotion rather than reason. These behaviors are intended to guide your decisions, subtly nudging you toward outcomes that serve the manipulator's agenda. Recognizing these cues requires attentive observation, the ability to read between lines, and an understanding that actions often speak louder than words. A key indicator of manipulation is inconsistency. When statements, actions, or commitments do not align, or when priorities shift in ways that seem calculated, there may be a hidden motive. Manipulators exploit gaps between perception and reality, relying on your trust, inattention, or assumption of good faith. Leaders who spot these inconsistencies early can address them proactively, minimizing disruption and protecting decision-making integrity. Another tool for recognition is pattern analysis. Manipulation is rarely a one-time occurrence. It is a methodical process. Look for recurring behaviors, repeated exaggeration, repeated appeals to sympathy or fear, or repeated attempts to steer decisions away from objective assessment. Patterns reveal intent. By documenting and analyzing these behaviors over time, you gain clarity on whether influence is strategic collaboration or subtle coercion. Patterns turn intuition into insight, enabling action before manipulation solidifies. Emotional cues are also revealing. Manipulators often aim to provoke reactions: frustration, guilt, anxiety, or urgency, because emotional responses cloud judgment. Pay attention to moments when your feelings surge without obvious cause. Ask yourself whether the emotional response is proportional to the situation or whether it may be engineered to divert focus. Emotional awareness acts as a safeguard, allowing leaders to respond with measured thought rather than reactive impulse. Communication dynamics provide further insight. Manipulation frequently hides in language, ambiguity, overgeneralization, leading questions, or selective framing. A statement may be technically true but designed to mislead. A request may appear neutral but carries implicit pressure. Leaders who listen attentively, ask clarifying questions, and test assumptions uncover the hidden intent behind words. Precision in communication is both a diagnostic tool and a protective measure. Another critical skill is discernment in relationships. Manipulators often exploit trust and familiarity, choosing targets based on perceived influence, naivety, or willingness to accommodate. Observe how individuals interact with others, who deflects accountability, who exaggerates contributions, who applies pressure subtly to achieve outcomes. Discernment requires separating personal feelings from objective assessment. Emotional bias can obscure intent, while measured observation illuminates the underlying dynamics. Boundaries are essential in this context. Recognizing manipulation also means establishing limits. Leaders who tolerate unchecked influence or fail to assert expectations create fertile ground for agendas that conflict with organizational objectives. Boundaries clarify acceptable behavior, set standards for accountability, and reduce opportunities for covert manipulation. Assertiveness, grounded in fairness and clarity, acts as a deterrent to those who would subtly distort influence for personal gain. Critical thinking complements all these strategies. Leaders must evaluate information objectively, considering source, motive, and context. Manipulators often provide partial truths, omit key details, or appeal to assumptions. Questioning, verifying, and triangulating information reduces vulnerability. Critical thinking transforms perception into knowledge, insight into action, and suspicion into strategic awareness. Ethics intersect with recognition as well. Detecting manipulation is not an invitation to retaliate with subterfuge or counter-manipulation. True leadership maintains integrity while protecting outcomes. Responding ethically strengthens credibility, preserves relationships, and ensures that influence is exercised with fairness and purpose. The objective is not to dominate but to act decisively, guided by both insight and principle. Situational awareness is equally important. Manipulation does not exist in isolation. It interacts with culture, hierarchy, and the environment. A statement that appears manipulative in one context may be standard negotiation in another. Understanding context, norms, and incentives allows leaders to interpret behavior accurately. Awareness of the broader environment ensures that responses are proportional, effective, and aligned with strategic goals. Timing amplifies the effect of recognition. The earlier manipulation is identified, the more options you retain. Early detection allows subtle course correction, prevents escalation, and protects relationships and outcomes. Conversely, delayed awareness increases vulnerability, narrows choices, and may necessitate more aggressive interventions to restore alignment. Proactive observation and vigilance are therefore essential in mitigating risk. Another element is the cultivation of intuition, grounded in experience and reflection. Leaders who consistently observe, analyze, and reflect develop a sense of when something feels strategically off. Intuition is not guessing. It is pattern recognition and synthesis of multiple signals, both emotional and factual. Trusting this informed instinct, when combined with verification and analysis, enhances responsiveness without succumbing to reactionary decision-making. Reflection consolidates all these practices. After each encounter, review signals, behaviors, and outcomes. Consider whether any influence attempted to steer decisions subtly, whether patterns emerged, and what could be learned. Reflection strengthens judgment, enhances pattern recognition, and reinforces the mental frameworks necessary to detect manipulation in future interactions. Leadership is iterative. Each observation and each analysis adds to the capacity for insight. Closing this chapter, understand that manipulation thrives in the unseen and the unacknowledged. Leaders who cultivate attentiveness, emotional awareness, critical thinking, and ethical discernment diminish its power. Detecting manipulation is less about confrontation and more about maintaining clarity, protecting decision-making, and acting with integrity. Every subtle signal you observe, every pattern you analyze, and every boundary you enforce fortifies your position and safeguards your influence. Recognizing manipulation before it takes hold is not a defensive posture. It is strategic mastery. It allows you to act with foresight, maintain trust, and guide outcomes confidently. Awareness transforms uncertainty into opportunity, subtle influence into actionable insight, and hidden agendas into navigable dynamics. Leadership flourishes when you perceive the unseen, respond with intention, and remain steady even when motives are concealed. Chapter 6. Building Strategic Awareness, Turning Insight into Influence. Awareness alone is not enough. Observing hidden motives, detecting manipulation, and understanding unspoken dynamics provide knowledge, but knowledge without strategy does not translate into influence. Strategic awareness is the bridge between insight and action. It is the ability to perceive the landscape of human behavior, anticipate moves before they are made, and position yourself in ways that guide outcomes while preserving integrity and authority. Leadership is a living network of relationships, alliances, and intentions. Strategic awareness allows you to navigate this network effectively, turning perception into power. The first layer of strategic awareness is clarity of vision. Before you can influence effectively, you must understand your own objectives with precision. What outcomes matter most? What principles are non-negotiable? When your direction is clear, it becomes easier to align others without coercion and to assess the impact of hidden dynamics on your goals. Clarity acts as a filter, helping you distinguish between distractions, hidden agendas, and opportunities that truly advance your mission. Mapping relationships is a core practice. Every organization, team, or group contains formal hierarchies and informal networks. Some connections carry influence far beyond their official role. Others act as bridges between factions. Recognizing who communicates with whom, who exerts subtle sway, and who holds credibility allows you to anticipate responses and leverage relationships strategically. Mapping is not about cataloging titles. It is about understanding the flow of influence, the nodes of power, and the channels through which action moves. Observation remains critical within this mapping. Patterns of behavior, reactions to stress, and the subtleties of interpersonal interaction provide insight into motives and potential alignments. Strategic awareness involves combining these observations with contextual understanding. Why did a decision take longer than expected? What drives enthusiasm for one initiative but resistance for another? These questions, answered through careful observation, inform your choices and strengthen your capacity to guide outcomes. Anticipation is a defining element. Strategic awareness is predictive as much as it is reflective. Recognizing recurring patterns allows you to foresee possible challenges and opportunities. Hidden agendas are rarely revealed all at once. They emerge gradually through behavior, alliances, and communication. By anticipating moves before they materialize fully, you retain control over your decisions and reduce the risk of being caught off guard. Anticipation is not about assuming the worst. It is about preparedness and informed foresight. Another layer involves discerning alignment. Not every hidden agenda conflicts with your objectives. Some ambitions can be harnessed, guided, or integrated to serve shared goals. Strategic awareness allows you to differentiate between destructive misalignment and potential collaboration. By aligning interests where possible, you reduce friction, foster engagement, and strengthen the collective mission. Influence is not exercised by suppression, but by insight and coordination. Emotional intelligence is inseparable from strategic awareness. Understanding the feelings, motivations, and pressures influencing behavior equips you to navigate complex dynamics. Emotional cues often precede actions and reveal intentions that words conceal. A skilled leader reads these signals and integrates them into decision-making, leveraging awareness of emotions to anticipate challenges, support alignment, and reinforce trust. Emotional intelligence transforms observation into actionable strategy. Communication is another vital tool. Strategic awareness informs not only what you communicate but how, when, and to whom. Messaging can clarify priorities, reinforce alignment, and guide decisions without confrontation. Leaders who adapt communication to the landscape of influence maintain credibility and avoid unnecessary conflict. Subtle shifts in tone, framing, or timing, guided by awareness of hidden dynamics, amplify impact and minimize resistance. Decision-making under uncertainty requires judgment. Strategic awareness does not eliminate ambiguity, but it equips you to act with confidence despite it. By integrating knowledge of hidden motives, interpersonal patterns, and organizational networks, you make choices informed by both context and principle. Effective leaders weigh evidence, anticipate consequences, and act decisively, using insight to reduce risk and increase the likelihood of desired outcomes. Monitoring feedback closes the loop of strategic awareness. Every action you take generates reactions, both overt and subtle. Observing these responses provides real-time intelligence, validating assumptions, or revealing previously unseen dynamics. Feedback is not only information, it is a tool for refining strategy, adjusting approaches, and reinforcing influence. Leaders who incorporate observation of outcomes into their ongoing awareness cultivate adaptive, resilient authority. Risk assessment is an extension of this process. Strategic awareness involves identifying not only opportunities, but also potential vulnerabilities. Hidden agendas, unaligned motives, and unforeseen consequences pose threats to both outcomes and credibility. By assessing these risks systematically, you prepare contingencies, allocate resources wisely, and act with confidence. Awareness combined with risk management transforms uncertainty from a threat into a controlled variable. Ethical grounding remains central. Influence achieved at the expense of integrity is fragile and short-lived. Strategic awareness allows you to guide outcomes while maintaining trust, credibility, and alignment with your principles. Knowledge of hidden agendas or unspoken motives becomes a tool to protect the organization and its people rather than a weapon for personal gain. Leadership is strengthened when influence is exercised with insight, restraint, and ethical purpose. Cultivating strategic awareness is a continuous practice. It is not a one-time analysis, but an ongoing process of observation, reflection, and adjustment. The landscape of relationships and intentions evolves constantly. By maintaining vigilance, updating mental maps, and refining judgments, you sustain influence and remain responsive to emerging dynamics. Mastery lies in adaptability combined with foresight. Reflection and documentation are practical habits. Maintaining a record of observed behaviors, decisions, and outcomes provides a reference that supports pattern recognition and predictive insight. Journaling observations, tracking communications, and reviewing outcomes strengthen memory, enhance analysis, and reinforce judgment. Strategic awareness grows not just from observation, but from structured engagement with the intelligence you gather. Closing this chapter, internalize the principle that awareness is only as valuable as its application. Insight without strategy is inert. Perception without action is wasted potential. By building strategic awareness, you translate observation into influence, discernment into decisions, and knowledge into actionable guidance. The leader who understands hidden motives, maps influence, anticipates outcomes, and communicates with clarity is empowered to navigate complexity, protect integrity, and shape results confidently. Every pattern you recognize, every relationship you map, and every subtle signal you interpret strengthens your capacity to act decisively. Strategic awareness is not about control alone. It is about understanding the unseen, leveraging insight ethically, and guiding outcomes with both precision and integrity. This awareness transforms knowledge into influence, turning the invisible currents of human dynamics into pathways of leadership mastery. Chapter 7. Aligning leadership with integrity. Influence without compromise. Power and influence are not inherently opposed to integrity. In fact, they are inseparable when leadership is sustained over time. Influence without integrity is fragile, short-lived, and prone to backfire. Leaders who succeed in shaping outcomes while maintaining principles cultivate authority that endures, commands respect, and inspires loyalty. Aligning leadership with integrity is both a challenge and an imperative. It requires self-awareness, ethical courage, and the ability to navigate complexity without losing sight of values. The first step is defining non-negotiables. Every leader must know their core principles, the standards that cannot be compromised regardless of circumstance. These values anchor decisions, guide behavior, and provide clarity when facing hidden agendas or conflicting interests. Without this foundation, influence can drift into expediency or opportunism, eroding credibility and trust. Defining these boundaries is not merely an intellectual exercise. It is a commitment to act consistently even when pressures mount. Transparency is an essential companion to integrity. While not every detail can or should be disclosed, clear communication about intentions, expectations, and reasoning fosters trust. It reduces opportunities for misinterpretation and diminishes the potency of hidden agendas. Transparency does not mean vulnerability to manipulation. It means clarity of principle, consistency of action, and openness to dialogue where appropriate. Leaders who master transparency wield influence confidently without compromising ethical standards. Decision-making grounded in principle strengthens alignment. Every choice a leader makes can reinforce credibility or undermine it. When decisions are guided by consistent values, people recognize patterns of fairness, reliability, and ethical judgment. These patterns inspire trust, minimize resistance, and amplify the impact of influence. Hidden motives and agendas lose potency in an environment where clarity and integrity govern outcomes, because actions reflect predictable, principled reasoning rather than reactive whim. Emotional discipline supports integrity. Pressure, stress, and ambiguity often test adherence to principles. Leaders who maintain emotional balance navigate these pressures without abandoning values or reacting impulsively. Emotional mastery, cultivated through awareness, reflection, and regulation, ensures that influence is exercised deliberately rather than impulsively, even in the face of hidden agendas or unexpected challenges. The steadiness of a leader's response signals authority and reinforces trust among those they guide. Ethical foresight is critical. Leaders must anticipate the consequences of actions, not only for immediate outcomes, but for longer-term implications on relationships, culture, and reputation. Hidden agendas may tempt shortcuts or compromises, but ethical foresight evaluates whether temporary gain justifies potential cost. Influence rooted in principle endures precisely because it accounts for the cascading effects of choices, prioritizing sustainability over expediency. Integrity also requires courage. Maintaining principles often conflicts with convenience, popularity, or short-term advantage. Speaking truth, addressing misalignment, or confronting unethical behavior demands boldness and resilience. Leaders who act courageously reinforce their credibility, and demonstrate that influence is derived not from position alone but from moral authority. This courage inspires others to act with integrity as well, creating a culture where hidden agendas are less likely to thrive. Influence is amplified when it respects autonomy. Integrity does not necessitate control over every decision or action. Leaders who guide through principle rather than coercion foster environments where others can align voluntarily. This voluntary alignment is more durable and authentic than compliance forced by pressure or manipulation. By modeling consistent ethical behavior, leaders cultivate respect, loyalty, and collaboration, core elements of sustainable influence. Strategic alignment enhances ethical influence. Awareness of hidden dynamics, recognition of manipulation, and understanding of motives are all tools that can be applied with integrity. Leaders who integrate insight into ethical strategy can anticipate challenges, mediate conflicts, and steer outcomes without compromising values. Strategic awareness without ethical grounding risks exploitation. Ethical grounding without awareness risks naivety. True mastery combines both. Accountability reinforces credibility. Leaders aligned with integrity accept responsibility for outcomes, decisions, and the impact of their influence. They do not shift blame, conceal errors, or manipulate narratives to protect ego. Accountability fosters trust, models behavior for others, and strengthens authority. Hidden agendas, manipulation, or misalignment are addressed not by deception, but by transparent action, guided by principle and reinforced by responsibility. Reflection and self-assessment are essential practices. Regularly evaluating decisions, responses, and their alignment with core principles ensures that integrity is maintained even under pressure. Leaders who reflect identify gaps, recalibrate strategies, and reinforce commitment to values. This ongoing process strengthens resilience, sharpens judgment, and ensures that influence continues to operate ethically and effectively. Mentorship and culture building support integrity at scale. Leaders who model ethical influence create environments where others are encouraged to act with the same standards. Clear expectations, reinforced through behavior, guidance, and feedback, reduce the space in which hidden agendas can flourish. Leadership that combines insight with principle cultivates a culture of alignment, trust, and shared purpose. Closing this chapter, internalize this principle. True influence is inseparable from integrity. Authority rooted in ethical clarity withstands hidden agendas, resists manipulation, and inspires trust. By defining core values, maintaining transparency, exercising emotional discipline, and acting courageously, leaders align strategy with principle. Influence becomes not a tool of coercion, but a reflection of ethical mastery, strategic foresight, and unwavering clarity. Aligning leadership with integrity ensures that every decision, every interaction, and every initiative strengthens credibility, fosters trust, and enhances impact. The leader who maintains ethical clarity even in complex, ambiguous environments transforms insight into enduring influence, guiding outcomes without compromise, and inspiring others through the steadfast example of principled authority. Chapter 8. Systems that support transparency. Structures that protect leaders and teams. Leadership does not exist in a vacuum. Even the most perceptive and ethically grounded leaders are vulnerable without systems that support clarity, accountability, and alignment. Hidden agendas, miscommunication, and misaligned incentives thrive in the absence of structure. By designing systems that encourage transparency, leaders create environments where motives are visible, collaboration is reinforced, and unexpected disruptions are minimized. Strategic structures transform awareness and insight into sustainable influence, protecting both the leader and the team. The foundation of these systems is clarity of process. When roles, responsibilities, and expectations are clearly defined, opportunities for misunderstanding, misalignment, and concealed agendas are reduced. Everyone knows what is required, who is accountable, and what outcomes are prioritized. Ambiguity is the playground of hidden motives. Clarity constrains it. Leaders who establish explicit processes create a predictable environment where performance is measured against agreed standards rather than subjective perception. Documentation is a key tool. Recording decisions, communications, and agreements creates a tangible record that supports alignment and accountability. Written documentation reduces the potential for misinterpretation, allows for review, and provides evidence in cases of disagreement or dispute. When actions and commitments are traceable, hidden agendas find it more difficult to operate unnoticed. Documentation is not bureaucracy. It is a protective framework that reinforces clarity and integrity. Communication protocols strengthen transparency. Regular, structured communication ensures that critical information flows efficiently and consistently. Scheduled updates, standardized reporting, and clear channels of dialogue reduce the risk of selective disclosure or misinformation. Leaders who set and maintain these protocols ensure that everyone receives the same information at the same time, making hidden motives more visible and easier to address proactively. Feedback systems enhance visibility. Constructive feedback, performance reviews, and regular check-ins create opportunities to surface challenges, misalignments, and underlying intentions. When feedback is encouraged and structured, team members feel safe to express concerns, and leaders can detect discrepancies between reported and actual behaviors. Systems that normalize dialogue and evaluation reduce the space where hidden agendas can persist unnoticed. Decision-making frameworks provide protection, establishing criteria for decisions, approval processes, and collaborative evaluation mechanisms ensures that choices are guided by objective standards rather than individual influence. When decisions follow a defined methodology, personal agendas are less likely to dominate outcomes. Leaders can focus on strategy rather than constantly monitoring hidden motives, confident that processes reinforce fairness, consistency, and alignment. Technology can support transparency without exposing vulnerability. Project management tools, workflow trackers, and communication platforms create visibility into activities, progress, and outcomes. Digital systems allow leaders to monitor alignment, detect anomalies, and maintain oversight efficiently. When combined with human observation, these tools form a comprehensive structure that limits the impact of concealed intentions, while empowering teams to act with autonomy within clear parameters. Cultural reinforcement is equally important. Systems succeed only when supported by shared values and norms. Leaders must model transparency, fairness, and accountability consistently. By embedding these principles into the organizational culture, expectations become self-reinforcing. Team members internalize standards of behavior, and deviations become visible and addressable. Culture transforms structure from a mechanical framework into a living system that encourages integrity and collaboration. Incentive alignment reduces the temptation for concealed motives. When recognition, advancement, and rewards are linked to transparent behavior, measurable outcomes, and collaboration, personal agendas are naturally guided toward shared objectives. Systems that clarify what is valued, how it is assessed, and how it is rewarded minimize the gap between individual motives and collective success. Alignment of incentives strengthens both engagement and trust. Risk management frameworks provide foresight. Systems that monitor potential vulnerabilities, forecast challenges, and provide contingency plans enable leaders to respond effectively to unforeseen dynamics. Hidden agendas often exploit gaps in oversight. Proactive risk management limits these opportunities. Leaders who integrate awareness, observation, and structured response mechanisms reduce uncertainty and reinforce stability. Training and education support sustainability. When team members understand the principles of transparency, accountability, and ethical behavior, they contribute to the effectiveness of systems rather than unintentionally undermining them. Regular workshops, coaching sessions, and mentorship programs reinforce standards, enhance skill sets, and promote a shared understanding of expectations. Systems thrive when people are informed, capable, and aligned with their purpose. Review and continuous improvement are vital. No system remains effective if static. Leaders must evaluate processes, communication channels, and oversight mechanisms regularly, identifying gaps, inefficiencies, and emerging vulnerabilities. By iterating and refining, systems adapt to evolving challenges, maintaining transparency even as complexity grows. Continuous improvement ensures that structures support leadership in both present and future circumstances. Ethical vigilance underpins all systems. Transparency systems are not merely administrative tools. They reflect the values, priorities, and principles of leadership. They protect individuals, uphold fairness, and foster trust. Leaders must ensure that these frameworks are implemented with integrity, not as mechanisms of control or surveillance. Ethical systems enhance credibility, reduce hidden agendas, and reinforce alignment between strategy and behavior. Closing this chapter, internalize this truth. Leadership is amplified and protected by systems that make actions, decisions, and intentions visible without compromising autonomy or trust. Structures that define process, enable clear communication, document agreements, and provide oversight create resilience against hidden agendas. They empower leaders to focus on strategy, influence, and vision, rather than constantly reacting to the unseen. When systems are designed thoughtfully, reinforced culturally, and executed ethically, they transform environments. Hidden motives are illuminated, alignment is strengthened, and leadership operates with both confidence and authority. The structures you create today form the foundation for enduring influence, sustainable outcomes, and a culture where clarity and integrity prevail. Chapter 9. Strategic Collaboration. Influence through trust and discernment. No leader achieves lasting impact alone. Even the most insightful, perceptive, and disciplined leader must engage with others to translate vision into reality. Collaboration is the vehicle through which influence extends, decisions are reinforced, and outcomes are realized. Yet, in environments where hidden agendas exist, collaboration is not automatic. It requires strategy, discernment, and trust carefully cultivated. Strategic collaboration is the practice of aligning efforts, leveraging complementary strengths, and navigating relationships with clarity and intentionality. The first principle is intentional partnership. Not every alliance serves the collective mission. Some relationships are transactional, some are based on convenience, and others carry subtle agendas. Strategic collaboration begins with clarity about the purpose and value of each partnership. What does this alliance contribute to your objectives? How does it align with your principles? By defining the purpose of collaboration, leaders avoid entanglement in efforts that drain energy or compromise outcomes. Intentionality ensures every relationship has direction and meaning. Trust is both the foundation and the currency of collaboration. Without it, alliances are superficial, communication is guarded, and influence is limited. Yet trust is earned, not assumed. Leaders build trust by demonstrating competence, consistency, and integrity. They honor commitments, communicate transparently, and respect boundaries. In return, collaborators are more willing to share insight, align priorities, and act in concert with shared goals. Trust accelerates collaboration, strengthens cohesion, and reduces the friction caused by hidden motives. Discernment is equally essential. Effective leaders recognize that not all trust should be absolute. Hidden agendas and conflicting interests exist in every environment. Discernment allows you to gauge reliability, anticipate potential misalignment, and allocate influence strategically. It is not cynicism. It is the capacity to read behavior, assess motivations, and engage relationships with both openness and caution. Discernment ensures that collaboration is productive rather than a vector for unintended compromise. Communication sustains collaboration. In complex environments, clarity of intention, expectations, and feedback is crucial. Regular updates, candid discussions, and structured dialogue prevent misunderstandings and surface hidden dynamics before they escalate. Leaders who communicate effectively establish norms for interaction, reinforce accountability, and encourage mutual understanding. Strategic communication transforms awareness of hidden motives into actionable coordination. Shared goals provide alignment. Collaborators function optimally when objectives are mutually understood and valued. When individual ambitions are clarified in the context of collective priorities, energy is focused on outcomes rather than personal agendas. Leaders who establish clear, shared objectives reduce conflict, enhance commitment, and create synergy. Alignment fosters an environment where influence is exercised ethically, and hidden agendas are guided toward constructive contribution. Boundary setting protects integrity. Even in collaboration, leaders must maintain clear limits. Boundaries define acceptable behavior, decision-making authority, and accountability. They prevent overreach, preserve autonomy, and limit exposure to manipulative influence. Leaders who establish boundaries foster a culture of respect and accountability, where collaboration thrives without compromising principles or strategic objectives. Observation and feedback are continuous processes. In collaborative settings, monitoring both overt and subtle dynamics provides insight into alignment, engagement, and potential risks. Leaders pay attention to patterns of communication, behavioral shifts, and responses to stress. Feedback mechanisms allow teams to adjust proactively, correct misalignment, and reinforce commitment. Awareness, when paired with reflection and action, transforms collaboration from chance coordination into strategic influence. Leverage strength strategically. Collaboration is most effective when individual skills, perspectives, and resources are understood and utilized. Leaders who recognize complementary abilities can assign roles that maximize impact while minimizing friction. Strategic leverage ensures that influence is exercised efficiently, resources are optimized, and hidden strengths are activated in service of collective objectives. Collaboration then becomes a force multiplier rather than a source of compromise. Conflict is inevitable, but strategic collaboration frames it constructively. Differing perspectives, hidden motives, and competing priorities create tension. Leaders who approach conflict with curiosity, clarity, and a problem-solving mindset transform friction into opportunity. By addressing disagreements openly, seeking understanding, and guiding toward alignment, leaders maintain influence while preserving trust and cohesion. Conflict becomes a tool for refinement rather than disruption. Recognition and accountability reinforce collaboration. Celebrating achievements, acknowledging contributions, and holding individuals accountable for commitments strengthens bonds and encourages continued engagement. Recognition motivates, accountability guides, and both foster a culture where collaboration is valued and maintained. Leaders who integrate these elements create teams that are resilient, aligned, and responsive. Ethical awareness remains central. Collaborators must operate in an environment where integrity is reinforced. Leaders set the tone by modeling ethical behavior, guiding relationships with fairness, and addressing misalignment when it arises. Strategic collaboration thrives when trust and principle coexist, ensuring that influence is exercised responsibly and sustainably. Hidden agendas may exist, but ethical frameworks channel intentions toward constructive outcomes rather than conflict or exploitation. Reflection strengthens future collaboration. After each project, partnership, or joint effort, leaders evaluate what worked, what did not, and what dynamics influenced results. Lessons learned inform future alliances, enhance discernment, and refine strategies for engagement. Reflection converts experience into insight, allowing leaders to build a network of relationships that is both effective and resilient over time. Closing this chapter, internalize the essence of strategic collaboration. Influence grows when trust is earned, discernment is applied, and relationships are managed with clarity and purpose. Alliances are not passive. They are cultivated, reinforced, and aligned with both principle and vision. By observing dynamics, leveraging strengths, setting boundaries, and fostering accountability, leaders transform hidden agendas from obstacles into manageable variables. Every partnership you nurture, every conversation you guide, and every alliance you manage becomes a pathway to influence when approached with strategy, awareness, and integrity. Strategic collaboration turns human dynamics into strength, amplifying your ability to achieve objectives, safeguard values, and lead with authority even amidst complexity. Chapter 10. The Alchemy of Influence. Turning knowledge of hidden dynamics into power. Influence is more than persuasion. It is the ability to shape outcomes, guide decisions, and align actions without resorting to coercion or compromise of integrity. The true alchemy of influence lies in transforming insight into action, taking what you understand about hidden dynamics, human motives, and organizational currents, and converting it into tangible, effective leadership. This is not manipulation or deception. It is strategic mastery, where awareness, emotional intelligence, and ethical clarity converge to create results that benefit both leaders and those they guide. The first step in this transformation is integration. Knowledge of hidden agendas, subtle signals, and underlying tensions is powerful only when applied intentionally. Observations must be woven into decision-making, communication, and relationship management. Integration means synthesizing data from multiple sources, behavioral patterns, emotional cues, organizational structures, into a coherent understanding that informs strategy. The leader who achieves this synthesis moves from passive awareness to active influence. Timing is central to effective influence. Even the most accurate insight is ineffective if applied prematurely or too late. The alchemy of influence requires patience and judgment, recognizing the precise moment when intervention or guidance will be most impactful. Acting too early can provoke resistance. Waiting too long can allow dynamics to solidify beyond control. Leaders attuned to timing leverage events, perceptions, and readiness to maximize the effect of their actions. Communication is the vessel through which influence flows. Knowledge alone does not sway decisions. It must be expressed strategically. Leaders craft messages that are clear, compelling, and aligned with both objective and principle. They anticipate reactions, frame information to emphasize clarity without distortion, and use tone, timing, and medium deliberately. Communication guided by insight and intention amplifies influence while preserving credibility. Emotional intelligence enhances this alchemy. Influence is rarely achieved solely through logic or authority. Understanding the emotions, fears, and aspirations driving others allows leaders to guide behavior subtly, without coercion. Emotional cues reveal readiness, resistance, and alignment, informing the approach to negotiation, persuasion, and collaboration. Leaders who integrate emotional insight with strategic intent act with precision, ensuring influence is both effective and ethical. Adaptability is crucial. Hidden dynamics are fluid. Alliances shift, priorities evolve, and motives may change. Leaders who remain rigid in approach risk being blindsided. Strategic influence demands flexibility, adjusting tactics, modifying communication, and reevaluating alignment without compromising core principles. Adaptability transforms understanding into power by ensuring that insight remains relevant, actionable, and responsive to changing conditions. Leverage is another element of influence alchemy. Leaders identify where their insight intersects with opportunity, the points where understanding of hidden dynamics can guide outcomes most effectively. This may involve supporting the right alliances, anticipating resistance, or positioning resources strategically. By applying leverage thoughtfully, leaders maximize impact while minimizing effort and risk. Knowledge becomes actionable power when applied at the nexus of influence and opportunity. Trust magnifies the effect of influence. Even the most astute observations are limited if relationships lack credibility. Leaders who maintain consistent integrity, honor commitments, and communicate transparently enhance the receptivity of those they guide. Trust transforms insight into cooperative action, ensuring that influence is not imposed but welcomed, respected, and internalized. Influence grounded in trust is resilient and enduring. Reflection solidifies mastery. Every interaction, negotiation, or decision offers an opportunity to refine understanding of dynamics and improve future influence. Leaders who reflect on outcomes, evaluate the effectiveness of strategies, and adjust approaches accumulate wisdom. Reflection converts experience into a richer, more nuanced understanding of human behavior, organizational currents, and the subtle forces that shape decisions. Knowledge becomes refined power through deliberate analysis. Ethical discernment is the guiding principle. Influence can be used destructively or constructively. The alchemy of influence is ethical. It respects autonomy, reinforces values, and aligns outcomes with integrity. Leaders must continually evaluate whether their actions serve collective objectives, uphold principles, and foster trust. Ethical influence distinguishes mastery from mere manipulation, ensuring that power is exercised responsibly and sustainably. Systems support the application of influence. Processes that clarify expectations, document decisions, and provide feedback channels reinforce the impact of insight. Structural transparency magnifies influence by reducing confusion and increasing alignment. Leaders who integrate systemic support with interpersonal guidance enhance the effectiveness and reach of their decisions, ensuring that influence is embedded within the organization rather than dependent on singular interventions. Anticipation remains a critical skill. By predicting the responses of individuals, groups, and networks, leaders position themselves to guide outcomes proactively. Anticipation allows influence to be applied in ways that prevent disruption, minimize resistance, and maximize alignment. Knowledge of patterns, behaviors, and hidden motives becomes transformative when combined with foresight and strategic action. Mentorship and development extend influence. Leaders who invest in cultivating the awareness, skills, and judgment of others multiply their impact. By guiding others to understand hidden dynamics, apply discernment, and act with integrity, leaders create a network of influence that reinforces values, principles, and organizational objectives. Influence spreads not through authority alone, but through the development of capable, aligned individuals who carry vision forward. Closing this chapter, internalize this principle. Knowledge alone is inert. Influence emerges when insight is applied thoughtfully, strategically, and ethically. By integrating observation, emotional intelligence, timing, and communication with ethical discernment, leaders convert understanding of hidden dynamics into actionable power. The alchemy of influence is not domination. It is mastery, the ability to guide, align, and achieve outcomes while preserving trust, integrity, and authority. Every decision shaped by insight, every action informed by awareness, and every relationship guided by discernment transforms invisible understanding into tangible effect. The leader who masters this alchemy operates not merely within the visible structures of authority, but within the currents of human dynamics, shaping outcomes with precision, foresight, and unwavering principle. Chapter 11. Shadows Integrated. Balancing awareness, influence and authenticity. Leadership is not a contest between light and shadow. It is a delicate balance of both. The forces that operate unseen, hidden agendas, subtle motives, and unspoken tensions are part of every environment. Ignoring them leaves you vulnerable. Becoming consumed by them clouds judgment. True mastery lies in integrating awareness of these shadows with influence and authenticity, navigating complexity without sacrificing clarity, integrity, or your sense of self. Integration begins with acknowledgement. Hidden dynamics exist whether you recognize them or not. Denial creates blind spots, allowing manipulation and misalignment to take root. Awareness alone, however, is insufficient. It must be combined with reflection and discernment. By acknowledging these forces, you gain perspective, reclaim agency, and transform potential vulnerabilities into strategic insight. Shadows, when recognized and understood, become tools for navigation rather than obstacles. Authenticity anchors integration. Awareness of hidden agendas and subtle motives must not erode your principles or distort your identity. Leaders who act from a place of genuine intent maintain credibility, inspire trust, and reinforce their influence. Authenticity does not mean naivety. It means engaging with complexity without compromise of character. When your actions are congruent with values, your presence carries weight, even in uncertain or manipulative environments. Emotional mastery is essential. Shadows often provoke anxiety, doubt, or anger. Unchecked, these emotions cloud judgment and amplify reactivity. Leaders who cultivate awareness of their internal states and regulate responses transform emotional turbulence into clarity. Emotional mastery allows you to act deliberately, respond to hidden motives with precision, and maintain stability even when external dynamics are unpredictable. Calm presence itself becomes a form of influence. Discernment guides integration. Not every hidden motive threatens outcomes, and not every action requires intervention. Leaders must assess which dynamics warrant attention, which can be harnessed constructively, and which should be allowed to pass without response. Discernment prevents overreaction, preserves energy, and ensures that influence is applied strategically rather than indiscriminately. Shadows become visible, but they do not dominate your agenda. Systems and processes reinforce balance. Structures that support transparency, accountability, and communication reduce the impact of unseen forces while preserving autonomy. When combined with personal awareness, these systems create a dual layer of protection: individual insight and organizational clarity. Leaders operate with confidence knowing that both human observation and structural support provide resilience against misalignment or manipulation. Reflection consolidates learning. Every encounter with hidden agendas, subtle influence, or ethical challenge offers an opportunity to refine judgment and expand understanding. Reflecting on what worked, what did not, and how dynamics unfolded strengthens both insight and emotional intelligence. Integration is iterative. Each experience informs the next, gradually transforming awareness into intuitive, grounded mastery. Strategic application of influence completes the integration process. Awareness of hidden dynamics is meaningful only when translated into effective action. By aligning insight with timing, communication, and collaboration, leaders convert understanding into measurable impact. Influence exercised ethically and intentionally reinforces authenticity, while guiding outcomes toward alignment with both principles and objectives. Shadows inform strategy, not dictate it. Trust becomes both a tool and a measure. The ability to navigate complexity while maintaining credibility depends on relationships grounded in honesty, consistency, and reliability. Trust enables leaders to engage collaborators, manage sensitive information, and guide teams effectively despite unseen dynamics. Influence built on trust amplifies impact, reduces resistance, and creates an environment where hidden motives are more transparent and manageable. Balance requires perspective. Leaders must hold awareness of both opportunity and risk, transparency and discretion, influence and authenticity. Overemphasis on any single dimension creates imbalance. Excessive vigilance may breed paranoia, unchecked influence may compromise ethics, and rigid authenticity may limit strategic flexibility. Integration is dynamic. It requires continual calibration of observation, action, and principle. Mentorship and modeling reinforce integration. Leaders who demonstrate balanced navigation of shadows, ethical influence, and authentic presence teach others to operate similarly. Observing how challenges are addressed, how motives are assessed, and how decisions are guided by principle creates a ripple effect of competency and integrity. Influence expands as others internalize the lessons of integrated leadership. Resilience underpins this balance. Integration does not eliminate complexity or hidden motives, but it equips leaders to remain effective despite them. Resilience emerges from self-awareness, emotional regulation, strategic insight, and adherence to principles. It allows leaders to respond rather than react, to adapt rather than yield, and to guide rather than be swept along by currents they cannot control. Closing this chapter, internalize this truth. Shadows are neither enemies nor sources of shame. They are part of the landscape of influence. Leadership is mastery of that landscape, not denial of it. By integrating awareness, influence, and authenticity, you navigate hidden dynamics with clarity, act decisively without compromising values, and maintain equilibrium even amidst uncertainty. Every observation, every decision, and every interaction contributes to this integration. The leader who achieves balance transforms potential vulnerabilities into strategic insight, hidden motives into actionable understanding, and complexity into opportunity. Shadows, once acknowledged and integrated, become a source of strength, a guide rather than a threat, enabling leadership that is both powerful and principled. Chapter 12. Sovereign Leadership. Living with mastery, influence, and strategic vision. Leadership that endures is not defined by title, recognition, or temporary success. It is defined by sovereignty. To lead with mastery is to command influence, navigate hidden dynamics, and make decisions with clarity and purpose, all while remaining rooted in integrity and self-awareness. Sovereign leadership is the culmination of awareness, strategic insight, and ethical action. It is the state in which a leader acts with authority that is earned, not imposed, shaping outcomes while maintaining alignment with values and vision. Sovereignty begins with self-mastery. Leaders who understand their own motivations, emotional patterns, and decision-making tendencies gain clarity and confidence. Self-mastery allows for deliberate action rather than reactive behavior. When you know your principles, strengths, and vulnerabilities, you lead with intentionality. Hidden agendas and complex dynamics may exist around you, but your internal alignment ensures that these forces cannot derail your judgment or compromise your integrity. Vision provides direction. A sovereign leader sees beyond immediate challenges to the larger context, understanding how present actions connect to long-term goals. Strategic vision is not mere ambition. It is informed foresight shaped by insight into human behavior, organizational systems, and evolving circumstances. Leaders who maintain a clear vision guide decisions with purpose, anticipate shifts in dynamics, and align influence to outcomes that advance both objectives and values. Authority is earned through consistency. Sovereign leadership is not about asserting dominance, but about demonstrating reliability, competence, and integrity over time. Every decision, every interaction, every commitment reinforces credibility. Hidden motives and concealed agendas lose potency in the presence of authority grounded in consistent ethical behavior and strategic competence. Others follow not because they are compelled, but because trust and respect have been established. Influence is exercised intentionally. Sovereign leaders recognize that power is not wielded through coercion or fear, but through insight, strategic action, and ethical persuasion. Understanding hidden dynamics, leveraging relationships, and anticipating outcomes enable leaders to guide initiatives effectively. Influence, when aligned with principle, becomes a tool to achieve objectives while sustaining the trust and engagement of those involved. Resilience is foundational. Leadership inevitably involves challenges, setbacks, and unexpected shifts. Sovereign leaders cultivate resilience through emotional discipline, reflection, and adaptive strategies. They respond to adversity with composure, transform obstacles into learning opportunities, and maintain focus on objectives without losing sight of ethical standards. Resilience ensures that influence endures even under pressure. Integration of knowledge and action completes sovereignty. Awareness of hidden agendas, subtle dynamics, and complex relationships is transformed into strategic choices, decisive communication, and effective collaboration. Leaders act with precision, balancing foresight with responsiveness, observation with intervention, and analysis with decisiveness. Integrated action converts insight into results, demonstrating mastery that inspires confidence and reinforces authority. Ethical grounding sustains sovereignty. Leadership that compromises values for short-term gain risks credibility and influence. Sovereign leaders prioritize integrity, ensuring that every decision, negotiation, and strategy aligns with principles. Ethical leadership fosters trust, strengthens alliances, and reduces vulnerabilities to manipulation or hidden agendas. Authority exercised without integrity is fragile. Authority rooted in principle endures. Mentorship and legacy extend impact. Sovereign leaders cultivate others, sharing insight, modeling integrity, and reinforcing strategic thinking. By developing capable collaborators, leaders create a network of aligned individuals who support collective objectives. Influence multiplies through mentorship, embedding competence and ethical guidance into the fabric of the organization. Sovereignty is amplified when it inspires others to act with clarity, insight, and integrity. Reflection and continual growth maintain mastery. Sovereignty is not static. It evolves through experience, observation, and learning. Leaders who reflect on successes, challenges, and outcomes refine judgment, enhance emotional intelligence, and sharpen strategic insight. Continuous growth ensures that leadership remains adaptive, responsive, and effective, even as circumstances, people, and dynamics change. Balance between vigilance and trust sustains authority. Awareness of hidden agendas and subtle influences informs judgment, but it must be paired with confidence in relationships, processes, and ethical alignment. Leaders navigate uncertainty with discernment, knowing when to intervene, when to guide subtly, and when to allow autonomy. This balance ensures that influence is applied wisely, relationships are reinforced, and trust is preserved. Closing this book, internalize the essence of sovereign leadership. Mastery, influence, and vision converge to create authority that is resilient, ethical, and enduring. You lead not by reacting to hidden motives, but by observing, discerning, and acting with clarity. You influence not through manipulation, but through insight, strategy, and integrity. You inspire not through position alone, but through example, competence, and unwavering principle. Every insight gained, every system implemented, and every relationship nurtured contributes to your sovereignty. Hidden agendas, complex dynamics, and subtle challenges are part of the terrain, but they do not define your leadership. By integrating awareness, ethical influence, strategic action, and reflection, you become a leader who navigates uncertainty with confidence, commands respect through principle, and shapes outcomes with foresight and authority. Sovereign leadership is not a destination. It is a practice. It is the continual act of leading with mastery, acting with integrity, and shaping the future with vision. The journey of awareness, Insight and influence culminates in the ability to guide others and yourself with power that is both effective and principled. You are prepared to lead through complexity, illuminate hidden dynamics, and influence outcomes while remaining steadfast in your values, secure in your purpose, and sovereign in your authority.